for this set. This will be in the next notebook check. All right, that's good enough. So this lecture, like the last lecture I did, will be audio only. I will not be writing on the board. I will not have a PowerPoint. Not because I am a bad teacher, although that's debatable, but because you will encounter professors who only talk at you. And so you need to learn to take notes when someone writes on a board, when someone has a PowerPoint, and when someone only talks at you. So today will be an audio lecture. Cool. All right. So concessions. Remember our objective? Students will be able to compose a concession paragraph. So your essential question can come from there. How can I compose this concession paragraph? What is a great concession paragraph? How do I make an awesome concession paragraph? What is a concession paragraph? And why do we need them? Two-parter. Okay? So make your essential question. Make sure you have your title. Today's date is the 16th. Lego. Okay. Concession paragraph should consist of about 4 sentences. 4 to 6 is good. Concession paragraph should have 4 to 6 sentences. Now, what you want to remember, that's a suggestion, not a constraint. So, if you do a concession paragraph in 5 sentences, no one's going to go, oh, this is 5 sentences, the blasphemy, or 3 sentences, how dare you? No one cares, okay? But some of y'all are writing like 12-sentence concession paragraphs, and then you aren't getting to the end, and it's trailing off, okay? So I don't want you to go through a non sequitur, which means it's not related, and go off in left field somewhere. In order to do that, to rein you in, you want to keep 4 to 6 sentences. Cool? Good. All right. Sentence 1, first sentence. It summarizes the opposition's viewpoint. Two ways to think about it: the claim for the other side or the thesis for the other side. So once again, it summarizes the opposition's viewpoint, summarizes the other side, and you want to think of it as a claim or thesis for the other side. Okay, so with that, you want the most honest and strongest viewpoint for the other side. You do not want to go up against their weakest point. You want to argue against yourself and attempt to take yourself down. I know that sounds crazy, but it makes no sense to argue against a weak point, okay? Analogy. What's more impressive? Saying, hey man, I just won at basketball. Who were you playing? Oh, the second grader. That you impressed by an 11th grader that beats a second grader at basketball? No, you're not. But, hey, I just won at basketball. Who you playing? Oh, this NCAA second year. He's about to go to the NBA. Oh, okay. Now I'm impressed. I'm only impressed when you take out the strongest opponent. It's the same thing with an argument essay. I'm only impressed when you take out their strongest argument. Does that make sense? You gonna write, you typing them up? I mean, you could make life happen. All right. Dos. Second sentence. You're going to acknowledge the parts of the other argument that are valid. So think of this as like your mini or your semi-essay from the other day, right? you're going to give me a couple of reasons why the other side might be right. Maybe even an example from the other side. So this one's going to be either sentence 2 or sentence 2/3. It might take you 2 sentences to do this part, okay? But you want to lay out the reasons that the other side might be right. And again, you want their strongest reasons and their strongest evidence. Okay? So after you're 2 to 3 sentences in, you've laid out everybody else's argument, you've said why they might beat you, okay? Then you want to hit them. See, concession means to give up. When an elected official loses a race, he has to make what's called a concession speech. He has to call the other party. So Hillary Clinton 2 years ago had to call Donald Trump to what's called concede. It means I lose, I give up, uncle, white flag. The first 2 sentences of this paragraph are your white flag, okay? You're giving up. You're right, other side is better. Then you're going to be petty and you're going to take it back. You're going to go, I give up. Nah, not really, I don't give up. And then you're going to do your counter argument and rebuttal. So your third sentence should be a counter argument. It should be your rebuttal. Okay? Now here is a very important point. Okay? So these 2 things need to be said with exclamation marks. 2 separate points. Point 1. Your rebuttal should respond directly to the reasons in the previous sentence. Okay? Again, your rebuttal should respond directly to your reasons in the previous sentence. I have to give an example of this. So what you don't want to say if we're talking about incentives for charity, right? You don't want to say a general incentives for charity. Others might say incentives for charity are good. People who say incentives for charity are good are wrong. You want to respond directly to the evidence you provided above. Example. Some may say incentives for charities are good. Sentence 1 summarizes their point. Sentence 2. Their reasoning for this may be that incentives will start the ball rolling and get people to do charitable acts. For example, if you donate to the Goodwill because of the tax break, maybe you'll just start donating to Goodwill out of habit. Okay? Your rebuttal should respond directly to that. So I would say, however, when people are given incentives, it is often the case that when those incentives are taken away, they do not continue to perform at that level. Then you would give an example. So you'd say, for example, when students realize that they will earn an A in a class no matter how hard they work, their work ethic tends to go down. Thusly, incentives only work when they are present. Incentives do not lead to people doing work on their own. You see how I said my counter argument was Incentives make people do stuff on their own. And my rebuttal was, no, incentives don't make people do stuff on their own. I'm responding directly to my argument. Okay? Next important point, we want to avoid fallacies. You want to avoid fallacies. Okay? Don't start attacking the author who came up with the idea. So I don't want you to start attacking Mencken and saying, Mencken was wrong. I want you to start attacking Singer and going, the Singer solution to poverty is stupid. Okay? We don't want to start attacking people. Okay? We don't want to make appeals to doubtful authorities. Well, you know, Lady Gaga gives away so much money to charity because, you know, we don't want to start making appeals to doubtful authority. We don't want to start coming up with hypotheticals. Okay? If blah, 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 when someone, we want to avoid the ifs and whens. If you don't have an exact example, find one. Okay? You want to avoid the ifs and whens, especially in your rebuttal paragraph. And then finally, we have our final sentence, which is going to be your fourth, maybe fifth sentence. Okay? Final sentence does three things at once. It summarizes why the opposing side isn't sufficient, and then slides into your conclusion. So it does three things. Here's why you're wrong. Here's why I'm right. Conclusion. Here's why you're wrong. Here's why I'm right. Slide into the conclusion. So, if it's going to do those three things, what type of sentence should it probably be? Compound, complex sentence. It should definitely be compound or complex. But the best type of sentence would be compound, complex. For example, although many believe incentives for charities will get people to do more charitable work, comma, yet the reality is when the incentives are taken away, people are less likely to continue the charitable act because incentives only work to reinforce their existence. Students do work because of grades, not because they want to learn. If students only did work because they wanted to learn, we wouldn't have to give out grades. People do work because they get paid. If people did work for the joys of doing work, then the majority of the world's systems would be communist, not capitalist. See how I slid into my conclusion? My two-sentence conclusion about grades and capitalism slid right into my conclusion. All right? So, you're wrong, I'm right, slide into the conclusion, and then you go with your conclusion. Does that make sense? Coolness.